Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're continuing our conversation with the incredible Brent Maldonado. In our last episode, we discussed how to participate in activities with a purpose to grow rather than just creating an impressive resume. Building off this today, we're going to zoom out into the bigger picture, and with Shane here, we're going to explore how to choose the best fit college. Okay, let's begin with the top 3 most common myths you hear from students about college and career journeys. Why are they myths?
Let's go with the top one that came to mind immediately. Community college is cheaper and a great way to transfer into my top choice school. I'll transfer in 2 years, right? Absolutely not. I hate this myth. And as a community college transfer student, I will tell you, depending on your major and trajectory, it could take 3 to 4 years to transfer. And so I always tell students, especially if you're a STEM major and if you're college eligible at high school graduation, you should be going to a 4 year college. Otherwise, it could take you 6 years to finish a 4 year degree because those first 4 years you will be trying to trudge through the science and math sequence. And so, be saving in money, you are losing in time. And so, for a lot of folks, it really depends. I'll say if you're a computer science major, if you're thinking about going into the health field, particularly nursing, absolutely go to community college because they're fast, quick, nimble. You will be out in the workforce in 2 years or 18 months. So, like, that is great. And I was, especially for nursing, do the finger trick. Okay, if you go to a 2 year school and you do your nursing degree, you take the exact same test that a 4 year nursing student takes, right? What is the difference? So, first of all, in years 3 and 4, you are working and making $150,000 by the time this person graduates. The difference really is a 4 year degree is going to allow you to enter managerial positions, but with that 2 year degree and those 2 years of work experience, you can go back to school and finish those last 2 years while you're working and then position yourself for those managerial positions later, or even go into nurse practitioner, which is basically the best kind of doctor you can have. So there's a few nuances about that, but honestly, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to go to a local community college so I can get into Berkeley or transfer to a prestigious private school, I would say think again, really look at their transfer statistics, see if you are eligible now, please apply, go for it. So yeah, that's a big myth. So really do your homework on the timeline there because it's very rare for a student to get out in 2 years. The next big one, which I kind of talked about, is price tag. So a lot of times people do not apply to specific colleges because they're so expensive. I'm not gonna lie, they're expensive. Excuse me. However, if you are a top student or have really great test scores, you may qualify for merit aid. So I always say, do not like tell yourself you can't apply to a school because it's too expensive. Let them tell you they're too expensive after you get accepted. Because if you are a competitive student in their eyes, they may have some funding available for you. This is a great conversation for parents. Please start talking to your kids about college affordability earlier than later. Sometimes kids just believe that you can't afford college and won't apply to their dream schools because they think it's too expensive when you're fully prepared to pay for it. That's another like flip flop to that where like parents are like, oh no, we know, we've been saving, we have a 529 account, we have all this money set aside, and the kid doesn't apply because they think they can't afford it. And their parents are like, what are you doing? We had all this money for you. So I wouldn't let sticker shock kind of prevent you from applying. I always say, please please apply, because the financial aid office can support you in figuring, like, piecing together scholarships, offering merit-based aid, incentivizing or letting you know about other opportunities to help lower the costs, like becoming a residential assistant, which is basically a student who supports the younger students in the dorms. So that's something you can apply to as a second year, second, third, and fourth year in college. Again, merit-based aid, which can be renewable. I know there's a school, Whittier College in Southern California. If you have touched an instrument ever in your life, they will give you a $10,000 music scholarship. So like you don't even have to go to play the instrument. You just like, hey, I played trumpet in fourth grade. Like they're really generous with that scholarship. So really, really like have that conversation, but don't be shy in asking financial aid offices what are the steps. Some schools do require you to do the CSS profile or the FAFSA just to signal that you're interested in receiving funding. Even if I don't qualify, it's fine. Let them tell you you don't qualify. Also, every couple of years, colleges come together and decide an income threshold. They recently raised it to 200,000, which I know for some families you're like, ha ha ha, I still don't qualify. But for some families, they might be meaningful. So some schools say if your total family income is 2,000 adjusted gross income, then you will qualify for zero tuition. And then anything above that is usually half tuition to a certain benchmark, and then it's full price. So again, there's different levers in there. Also, family count. So a lot of times families don't count the grandparents that live in home with them, the nephew they're also paying private school tuition for. So you can work with a school's financial aid office to document all your true financial dependents, not those that just show up on your taxes. So again, this is like another myth that I'm always fighting, that I'm like, hey, don't say you can't afford it, apply first. They might give you money. I think in my current school this last year for class of 26, on average, every student got offered at least a $20,000 to $30,000 merit scholarship at least one of their schools on their list across the board. So that was pretty much our average, was about 25,000 per student, which can be significant. I mean, that literally covers housing and the meal plan. So that just opens up tuition. So yeah, so those are two. I could come up with this. I mean, there's lots of myths. There's lots of myths, but I think those two covered a lot.
Got it. Yeah, and like the first myth was on community colleges, which I'll admit it, like I definitely believed that one too, that if you go, you just end up paying for like half of a 4-year college because you're only going for third and fourth year. But I didn't actually know that if you're going into like a STEM or a science field, that it's actually much harder to like transfer into like a 4-year school. But I think like you did also show that that myth doesn't apply for those majors, but it does for like ones in healthcare and nursing. And I think that's something that's good to know, especially at planning it out when we're younger, before you're a rising senior. And then like the second one on like financial aid, that don't just not apply because you don't think you can afford it, but if you actually apply and you get accepted, then colleges will make a way for you to actually go to that school because that's why you were accepted. And I think those are really good like myths that you just busted. And then we did like talk a little about this in our previous episode about how college and career paths are really a linear journey. And so in my mind, like it seems simple, like you showed that you had this when you were younger too, right? You just graduate high school, you graduate college, you get a high paying job, and then you live a successful life. So why is this not the case? Like, why does this not just go according to our plans?
Why does it not go according to your plans? There's a joke that's like, what is it? If you want to make God laugh, tell them your plans. We can have goals and we can have really lofty dreams for ourselves and strive for those things, but it doesn't mean that they're going to happen. Or if they do happen, we end up liking them. Right? I always tell my students, what if everything goes right? Right? Like, what if everything you plan just happens, right? And what if everything goes wrong? And what if it does happen, but the path there was messier than you thought it was going to be, right? It's really, there's a lot of uncertainty there. So really, I think that using college in a way to really mostly work on your interpersonal and transferable skills is what you need to do. And even though I mean, it's almost a myth that when you go to college you're going to be like career ready. You're really not. You're learning that entry level information, right? Really nothing is going to prepare you for a career until you actually get out into the workforce and start working. But I think that being flexible and seeing where the path takes you, because I think a lot of students, particularly students who think they're going pre-med, that conversation when you fail OChem every year, I just want to be an artist. So, like, I think that sometimes when we start studying something or we get into a major, we learn really quickly this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is a little true story why I didn't do microbiology. I didn't like the politics behind research. What I learned was that to become a true researcher, you have to work in somebody else's lab for thousands of years, and then someday you get your own lab, but you don't get to work in your lab because graduate students are working in your lab. You're too busy writing grants for funding. I was like, none of this sounds fun. So I didn't like the bureaucracy behind it. So I pivoted, right? So like it's great to dream big. It's great to like have lofty goals for yourself, but do not get attached to them and always stay open to other opportunities. I have a couple of friends who started in education who now work in tech. I have friends who worked in tech who now work in like nonprofits, right? I mean, you just never know where the path is going to take you, but there's always going to be some through line. I think my through line has always been helping people, right? So I was a classroom teacher, I was a tutor, I've been a mentor, I work on boards. Like I'm obviously a college counselor, I'm a speaker. So like I do a lot of things. Did my undergrad prepare me for all of those things? In a way, yes, right? I still use skills that I learned in undergrad in every single iteration of whatever I'm doing. And I think that's where it is like don't get attached to the title of your degree, get attached to the skills you're learning.
Yeah, I think that was a really good, like powerful what you said, that it doesn't quite matter like what you're doing, but it does matter like the different skills that you have. And even though like the path will not be linear because the world's changing, like who knows what's going to happen next, but if you have the skills that like you said are transferable between different industries and different fields, then no matter what you're going to do, the path will definitely get easier. Like if you're STEM majored, all you're focusing is on like STEM, but you might have to switch into something else or take a different class and you don't have any of the skills for that, then that will take so much longer. But if you have built the skills that you will need to be like not well-rounded, but to do like everything in a decent like quality.
Nimble. Be
Yeah,
nimble.
yeah. If you can be nimble, then you can practically do everything, but make your journey faster. I think that makes sense.
Make your journey yours.
Yeah, and then many students start by looking at rankings when exploring colleges. So if you could have them ignore rankings for a moment, what are three questions they should ask themselves to figure out what types of colleges are best for them?
So I'll tell you the top because so number one thing I look at graduation rate. And this is why a lot of the schools that are ranked, excuse me, the way they're ranked are so high is because their graduation rates are like in the 95, 97, 98%. Asterisks, though, graduation rates are 6 years. They're 150% of degree attention. So, how many graduates from freshman year to diploma graduated within 6 years? You want to look at schools that are above 70%, especially if you're a high achieving student. Easy, right? You are not that 30% of kids that don't make it. So, that's one of the first things I look at is how our students graduate and are they graduating consistently? The second one I look at is retention rate. This is something that nobody looks at. I look at this. So retention rate is how many students stay to sophomore year. And that one should be in the 80s, right? Should be in the 80s or 90s. You really want to know, are students surviving freshman year and staying on to their second year of college? I wish there was one for junior year because that would tell you a lot of things. And to be frank, the Ivies would tank if we were looking at junior year. Because the reason why competitive colleges, brand name colleges, have these these fine looking numbers is that they have a hard cutoff at junior year. So if you don't meet certain requirements by the end of sophomore year, you are in essence asked to leave the school. So, and this is one of those things that, which leads to my third thing, is school culture. So, is a school going to fit your vibe? Like, as frankly as I can put that, because I think this is where certain students aim for Ivy League schools and they're the top of their class, they're the top of everything, but maybe their school wasn't as challenging as they believed it was, right? Maybe it was easy for them. They get into like Harvard or Cornell or any of these schools, and then the rigor of academics is cranked way up. They're competing with students who are as smart as they are. They are no longer the smartest kid in the room, right? And now you have this looming, if I don't make it to junior year with specific grades in the specific course sequence, I'm not going to graduate from this school, right? That pressure is a lot, and it takes its toll, particularly on students of color and female identified students. And it's just because the systems weren't built for us. And so those pressures take their toll on those specific communities. And of course, I have students and friends that have graduated from these schools and have survived that. But when they look back at it, they're like, I would never go back to that school. If I had to choose again, I wouldn't do it because of the pressure, because unsaids that I wasn't aware of, because I was looking at ranking. So I think it's something to just like really keep in mind that like the culture of the school is super important. If you find yourself to be like more of a collaborator than maybe a really rigorous R1 school, like you really want to ask students in the department, like, do you feel like you're collaborating with other folks, or do you feel like you're just siloed into your department and you don't really talk to other kids doing other research, right? If you're more of like someone who loves that type of pressure, go for it. Like if you're someone who's like, oh, I love having like a really like tough, tough goal to reach, like that's how I thrive. Absolutely, that's a great environment for you. I think also like navigating some of those isms. So like if you feel comfortable in politically and socially diverse communities that maybe don't have a firm understanding of your where you come from or your culture, and you're used to navigating that, go for it. You'll be fine. But some students really like bulk at that. Like some kids are like, I've only been in this like culture and community my whole life. So like having that type of perception of negativity towards you can be really hard. And then on top of that is the academic pressure, right? So really thinking about, is this a safe community for me to be in, and my learning style, the flexibility between majors. I think sometimes too some of these prestigious schools don't allow you to double major, just make it really difficult. They say on paper that you can double major, but when you talk to students they're like, oh no, like you have to do so much for this one major, there's no way, you don't have any time for the other major. So really again, so if you're someone who's a little bit more well-rounded or a little bit more interdisciplinary thinking, sometimes these more prestigious schools aren't the right fit. Don't get me wrong, there are some of the prestigious schools, some of the top ranked schools do fit that vibe, right? I think like Brown, Yale, they're a little bit more like, oh yeah, try it all on, right? I always joke that Yale is home of the three-word major because they just build the majors to be interdisciplinary, right? So there's opportunities there, but I think don't sit there and apply to every Ivy League, right? That doesn't make sense. There's 8 different Ivies, you don't fit all 8. I have one kid I've ever worked with that actually clean sweep the Ivies, and she was that well-rounded kid, right? But like it's rare, right? It's rare. So like I would say be strategic. If you're going to apply to a high-ranked school, make sure that it's an academic and social fit for you, and you should really be applying to one or two because they do definitely have different vibes.
Got it, yeah. So like the three things that were main were first like the graduation rate, which should be over 70%, the retention rate after sophomore year, after freshman year, which is um
80.
which
It's
would be
higher.
between, yeah, 80, 90.
Yeah.
And then also just like the vibe of the school and does it fit with like the personality that you have. And one thing that really stood out to me was that you mentioned that like these academically rigorous schools, they have these certain requirements that you have to meet after sophomore year to like stay at the school to graduate. And I feel like that is something less talked about, which it kind of just seems like going back to the previous question about like the linear path, where it just feels like you once you get in like your entire 4 years, next 4 years are set in stone and you're gonna go, but it doesn't, that's not quite how it works. And if you don't make the cut, then the path is non-linear now. And so those are like more myths busted right here. And so, like, building off of what you already like touched upon in this question, how can we know if a college is a fit for us, and what should we look out in ourselves to understand if we are a good fit for the college?
I think that's a great question because the whole application is the school vibe checking you, right? To be like, do you fit in here? And it really goes back to that like campus culture thing, right? They know the type of students that thrive at their school, so they're going to read your application and be like, you're not going to make it, right? They'll make that decision for you. But I really feel that like students miss an opportunity to understand a school by not looking at the about page. Something as simple as literally looking at the mission and vision of a school can tell you a lot about what the admissions is looking for in terms of temperament, social connection, community engagement. There's a University of San Francisco is a Jesuit school, and one of their supplemental questions is literally read our mission and vision and tell us how it connects to your personal values, right? And I think you should approach every single college you're researching with that question in mind. Because if you look at a school that has its roots in social justice, right? And it prides itself for I'm literally thinking about Brandeis. It prides itself in like being the first school that has like women, black people, people of color, right? And it is really like has always been that school that is like, no, everyone deserves a seat. Is that the type of school you want to go to? Or are you just more traditional and you're just I really just want to like get into my career, learn the nuts and bolts of what I'm passionate about and like get out into a job. You should be looking at a California State University, right? Honestly, especially for engineering majors. So like there's a school for everyone. There's nearly 4,000 colleges in the US. There's definitely going to be one for you. So I would say like do not discount certain schools because you have a perception about them. I think really think about who is thriving here. This is where I'm always like LinkedIn, like look up people LinkedIn, look at your like mentors or look at people you admire, check out their LinkedIn or read their bios and like what colleges did they go to. My favorite is like I have kids who are like brand blind, excuse me, and they're like, oh, I really want to go to Harvard because this researcher works there. And I'm like, they work there. They didn't go to school there. When you look at their resume, they went to like University of Wisconsin. And I'm like, if that's your thought process, then you should be applying to University of Wisconsin because they were made there. That's how they got the job at Harvard, right? So I think that sometimes we miss out on really great opportunities or really fantastic schools that we've just never heard of because they're just not on our radar. In the Bay Area, what is it? The only schools that exist are Stanford and Berkeley. And sometimes if you're a STEMI, it's Caltech. But like, and it's like in reality, California, in our public school system, we have 30 public 4-year universities, 9 UCs, and 23 CSUs. And then we have over 75 different private colleges, mostly in SoCal. And some of them are top ranked schools. When I'm thinking about the Claremont McKenna's, when we're thinking about Pomona College itself, which is like a West Coast Ivy. No one talks about that school. I'm like, it's one of the best West Coast Ivy schools here on par with Stanford. And we don't talk about it because it's not on people's radar. So things like that I think that sometimes we, especially when we're brand blind, we don't think about the fit aspect and who goes there. Do I see myself going there? The second thing is tours. Tours shouldn't be about the speech. They all have the best library. They all have whatever. They're all going to say the same thing. I've been on all of them, so I can like recite them. But I will say, when you step onto a college campus, do you feel welcome? Do you see yourself there? Do you look around school and like, oh, I can totally see myself chilling at that cafe, or like this library is so dope, I can see myself studying over there, or like that group of people there looks like my friends. Like that's really what you should be looking for when you're on a tour. It shouldn't be like, I mean, well, yeah, of course, like here's the classroom, like you know, school that's falling apart. But at the end of the day, you should really be looking around at who is going here and do I see myself as part of that who.
Got it. Yeah, and I think one like really great like idea you gave was to look at like the about us and the mission page and see like does that even like fit with like what I want to do, and like even like I'm going on tours like looking around not at just, oh, okay, this is like the trophy wall, this is where the classrooms are, but can I even like does this fit like my lifestyle, or does it look like the people here could actually be my friends and would I fit in? I think that's like something that's really important to look at. And then also, you had also mentioned that the colleges are going to make they're going to make the cut, like, do you fit in our college or do you not? But then you also have to make a choice, like, does this college even fit for something I want? And that's something like the colleges cannot make the choice of, which is why like doing what you mentioned is important. And then if we like track back a little bit and we're now like, let's say everyone's like a rising senior, how can student manage anxiety and pressure of the process of applications early on so they don't burn out before senior year starts?
Follow my advice, kids. Nobody does. No. So, I mean, I think one thing too, and of course it depends on when you hear this, but if you're a rising senior, for the love of God, work on your essays during the summer. Like that is the sweetest gift you can give yourself is working on the essays. The questions are public information. They rarely change. I just handed them to my juniors and they left them on the tables. So now I have to email it to them just to be that annoying counselor. But the UCPIQs are public information. The Common App common questions, public information. I think the supplemental questions tend to be a little bit more buried, but you can usually find them. I have a student that currently found them, so I will have access to them shortly. But I think working on those essays, even just getting at least a first or second draft done, that's the hardest part, just sitting down to write. This is where I see that students really like just tank the first half of their senior year because they drag their feet on the essays, which means they drag the feet on submitting, which means they're not focusing on their classes because this is stressing them out, right? And so really just utilizing summer just to only work on the essays, right? And it's not even something you have to do every day. Like pick a day of the week that you have 30 to 40 minutes. Be like, today I'm going to research the questions. Next week, I'm going to maybe try to brainstorm an answer to two of them. The following week, I'll brainstorm the other two, or maybe I'll start writing one of them, right? Just break it up, but just do it in little chunks and you'll get there. The other thing is, if an application is due in January, but you have other applications that are due in November, why are you dragging this out, right? I was like, my like personal life goal is to have a class that actually submits by November 15th. So everything, there's no reason to linger. So if you can set a lofty goal for yourself and try to get a majority of your applications done at least before the holiday break, gift that to yourself, time back. I hate it when students use that holiday break to work on essays or do another round of application submissions. This is the last Christmas you're going to have with your family living there. The next time you have Christmas, you're going to be visiting from college. And I think that doesn't sink in until it's happening. And then you're like, oh crap, that was my last Christmas. And all I was doing was in my room working on essays, right? So I really think that setting lofty goals for yourself, if you're applying for ED or early rounds, just try to get the rest of your apps done because most of your essays can be recycled, reduced, or reused. And I always say start with the PIQs first because that's four. And there is I think it's number 7 in Common App, a topic of your choice. Just mash those four together. And there you go. Right? I mean, skillfully, right? But I think there's ways to minimize the stress even within that. You shouldn't be writing a brand new essay for every college you're applying to. The other thing I will say is November 15th, it tends to be kind of an internal deadline that could be for merit aid for specific competitive programs. So this is also why I encourage my students to apply by November 15th, just to make sure they're not missing any early deadlines.
Got it. Yeah, and I feel like you really mentioned that to use summer and just start as early as you can so that later in the year when like school starts and there's Thanksgiving, there's Christmas, there's New Year's, like you don't want to be spending all those holidays cramming essays when you have all of summer to work on them. And I think it's like that's something that doesn't have to only be applied senior year. It can also be used like junior, sophomore, freshman, like not waiting till the last minute to do it, the essay, which I mean, and it's like more high stakes when you're doing college apps because those essays are what's going to decide whether you get in or not. And if you're doing it the last minute, then they're probably not good quality. And
Yeah.
as Yeah. As we close off, what's one thing a student can do this week, regardless of their grade level, to get closer to knowing what they want from their future?
Oh, kids. Don't fortune tell. That's my advice. I think just stay aware of where your curiosity is taking you. When I look back at myself, when I was growing up, I was the kid who was either reading a book in a library or playing school. So, ha ha ha, I work at a school now, right? And I eventually became a teacher. So I think like sometimes things we naturally are drawn to manifest themselves in the careers we end up in. I think sometimes, like, I think right now with like AI and everybody's like, oh, we all have to get degrees in AI or be smarter than the robots, whatever. And just like, calm down. Like, we need so many other roles that may be adjacent, you're not aware of, or haven't even been created yet. So I think really just like following your curiosity throughout. Like, true story, I am like obsessed with Monopoly. I also have like a playable Monopoly belt. And lo and behold, later in life, I became a financial literacy consultant, right? And so like and what is it? We always joke, I love to do taxes. I actually do love to do taxes. It's my favorite time of the year. Weird, right? And so literally something as simple as like my favorite board game was Monopoly, and I love to play school, and like I work at a school and I'm a financial literacy consultant. So like so don't discount your hobbies that can become or inform different career choices later. But I think also like don't don't read the news and scare yourself into believing that your future is dim. I think if you make choices now that fulfill you, you will find where you will fit in and into that future, right? I could never have predicted I was going to become a college and career coach and counselor. Like that was never even on my radar as a potential career. Teaching was, and I think being in the classroom and being in schools was, but I didn't think about all the different roles in a school, right? And I think that's again, when you're thinking about becoming an engineer or becoming a health professional, right? Look around the room if you're able to do a shadow or if you're able to do an internship. Who else is in the room? I had a friend that started in biochem and she does real estate for bio firms, biotech firms. And I was like, I didn't even think about that being a career. She's like, yeah. And then I know all the equipment they need. I know the type of spaces they need. And so when I'm looking for a building for a client and I know what their research is, I can also put them in a building with another organization that's doing similar research or whatever, right? And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about like real estate and biotech together at last, right? Like I never thought about it. So like I'm always a fan of like look around, see what's actually what other people are doing. It's not just that one job you're laser focused on, it's a whole team that makes that job work.
Got it. I think the main thing was that even if you have two different interests which you don't think can be combined, well, they can. Bio and real estate, I didn't think of that combination either. And then also your hobbies, like you mentioned that Monopoly led you to being a financial literacy advisor and playing the game school, and now you're a teacher. And I feel like it's something really important to not just forget like your like the hobbies and things that you are genuinely interested in, because that's probably where you're going to find the most like satisfaction, which, as we talked about, when you are genuinely fulfilled in a job, then it doesn't feel like a job to you. It feels like something you're doing with purpose. So thank you so much, Shane, for joining and sharing your pearls of wisdom with us today. It was a pleasure to talk with you for these 2 episodes, and you really shared some incredibly important pieces on choosing the best college individually, how to manage emotions, and that this journey will most likely not be linear. I hope our audience took away something too, and it was an honor to have you on.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every month, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we thank you so much for listening.